Hello, hello.
Hey, how is it going?
Stephanie, it's been a few weeks. I was playing with OpenClaw and not recording. Think we have an update of our experience, and OpenClaw is dead.
Well, at least for
It
us,
kind of died.
kind of died. And the main reason why it died was because the cost of running it just became unbearable. We've been using it with our Anthropic authorization token keys, which is kind of connected to the personal subscription. And that was working good until they
But
decided that
Anthropic are not too happy about that.
I'm not too happy about it. And I think that the main reason is because it's kind of encroaching on cloud co-work and the premise of that part of their product. So even just sending like just a simple message like to my OpenClaw personal assistant would take 5% of the usage limit for the session. So it really quickly maxes out, and it's just unrealistic like to use it for actual work.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're looking for alternative setups. But let's talk about what we managed to achieve with that. We were very much into the hype of it. We really wanted to deploy these agents. We sneak peeked into the future of work of this freedom, freedom from the desk, freedom from the computer, freedom from employees as well, and having a much more strategic work that we can execute through agents and delegate to them all the busy work.
Yeah.
By now, my fundamental belief is that it's doable, yet, as of right now, it is harder to achieve. Couldn't have streamlined ways to achieve these use cases.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's the glimpse into the future of work is just having a personal agent, having team agents that get delegated work that previously probably would have been done by a person. It's could be content creation and research and social media monitoring, SEO. I like the way that I approached it is like, okay, like I have all this like personal projects and question based work that I want to make progress on. What are things that I don't want to do that I would love to delegate? So this was kind of like my starting point with the OpenClaw. And yeah, then I started quickly coming up like with areas of responsibility and kind of together with my agent, which I called Cooper, we would define like these jobs and then it would just take over them. So the last thing that I was building was an agent, like essentially like the responsibility of taking care of the SEO and content for question base for before we shut it down.
Yeah, and here's where it came from. This was an actual business area that was well defined. We already were deploying an AI agent that was through a SaaS offering of software that somebody else has built, and it had that one purpose to connect kind of this AI content creation agent to your website with a plugin for Framer and get it to continuously upload content. And we have seen various of results. We've seen a lot of traffic. We have not seen the best of traffic with the agent that we were deploying because it wasn't strongly positioned around the keywords that we were looking for. It's an agent, it's customizable, but it felt that if we're building it from scratch in our OpenClaw agent would have had this specific skill of keyword research and then from there on write content with these keywords in mind and track the performance, whereas this SaaS-based agent didn't have specific focus on keywords. And even though you might have in the instructions included certain things you wanted to revolve around and topics, it would not necessarily be tied to the performance of these keywords, track them, improve them over time, iterate on its process. So we were seeing a lot of traffic, but we were not seeing the best of traffic. And also the SaaS subscription was only that, just a content writing AI. And it wasn't grounded in the performance of the website. It wasn't grounded in the technical errors that were coming into the content of the website and all these things. So we were actually very much in the need of being on top of that area and constantly asking other AIs and working with other agents to improve and unblock these areas, but in this assisting way, like the so-called manual currently way, where we download the report from Google Analytics, we deploy it to GPT or Cloud Cowork, and we say, hey, it seems like I'm getting some errors there, investigate what there could be, and then work from there. There was zero proactivity and zero independent work. And what we got fascinated with OpenClaw is that we can build this overall responsibility of SEO.
Yeah. This is really the exciting part of this kind of agent type. I don't know if I should call it a software because there is a level of autonomy that makes it very different from a regular software. And essentially it can write its own software that would use it as a tool. Because exactly what you described, like if the SaaS that we used took over certain part of the work, which was like the content creation, but essentially, like with the OpenCLO agents, we are able to do is connect it like to the Google Search Console, connect it to Google Analytics, give it the context of our business, and give it essentially the objective to increase relevant traffic, and then basically research and write content that could support this.
It felt much closer to a human SEO expert,
Yeah.
right? Some of the work we don't do it well just because we don't understand it. We are founders, we have our fingers in everything, but we don't necessarily have the deep expertise in each and every topic that we want our business to develop. So it felt like we can really tap into this expert that takes over the responsibility. Like, I want to develop my website as a vehicle for growth through SEO. Now, what would you recommend the strategies? Go ahead and do them and let me know where you're blocked so I can unblock you. You face this limitation that it didn't actually have a Framer plugin. So we ended up building our own plugin because it
Yeah.
was so early for that agent to operate on the market that it didn't have any of these tools to connect to the actual website.
And this is really the fascinating part. There's several things. First of all, the role of SaaS in the future and in agentic work, because I think that as a business owner, especially in our case, because we're not really excited about certain aspects of business. SEO is definitely like our burning passion. Like we would rather delegate this with the limited resources that we have, like and the technology that's coming up. It's actually super interesting to tinker with it and figure out could we delegate this work to a combination of agent and software. And this is where I think that even like with more complex businesses, if you have a good understanding of your business processes and you also have good understanding of technology, you're gonna be able to create custom solutions for your particular business and adapt them to your current tech stack, which is essentially what we have been trying to do on a very small scale for our company. But that's not to say that agencies are going to substitute all of SaaS softwares, because sure, like now it's very accessible for anybody that has a Cloud or Open AI subscription, like to start creating like these things. But then you really need to have some understanding of what is it actually that you're building, and somebody's going to maintain it, because yes, it is like super capable, but it's not just writing a single prompt and then it just goes out and creates like a unicorn business for you. So I think that for certain SaaS solutions, it will still be preferable for companies like to buy that solution, like to have that responsibility of creating that product and maintaining that product to another company, rather than every single company building solutions for themselves. Then it would be so funny, because if every single company builds their own solutions, then there is not going to be anybody to buy these solutions from them. It's kind of like a catch 33. Was it 33? 22. It's 22. It's a new type of a catch.
It's new type. Too many catches nowadays. You know, it was funny. I think that how we look at this technology is changing by the day, developing, evolving. Even it goes from this insane hype, oh my god, it will do all these things, let me cancel all my subscription, I'm just gonna build it myself and have this super lean business, to oh my god, this is a total disaster, let me restart all my subscriptions. Because most of these decisions are revertible.
Yeah. But also it costs. Like it costs for you like to build stuff with it. It's not just $20 and then you have like this thing covered. Actually, especially like with this change that Anthropic did with OpenClaw, seriously, like even sending like simple messages would cost like 20 cents per message. I mean, I started being so price conscious. It's almost like back in the days when we would send text messages that you would
Oh my
count
god,
the characters
yeah.
and you would create these abbreviations because you were paying per character. This is a little bit what's happening right now because you're paying per token. And maybe like in 5 years time or in 10 years time, it's going to be so cheap. Like all these tokens are going to be so cheap. And then financially, it wouldn't be an issue at all. But still, like these models are costing electricity and processing. So I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go.
For sure it's gonna get cheaper and cheaper to operate it. Like first on the creator side, like these big companies who are hosting the power right now. And on the end consumer part, on our side, it would eventually trickle down. But what I'm seeing is that companies do harm their reputation and good standing with the community, because this community, it's a very small community. Given the global scale, we live in our own bubble of tech and the people around us know about this technology and use them. But in a societal level, there's just a tiny percentage of the society. And even tinier percentage of that bubble is the super users who are pushing the limits of these technologies and really utilizing insane amount of resources. Let's say on $200 subscriptions, they're likely operating 4,000 worth of operation or even more. But this is tiny percentage. So I think that Anthropic are harming their good standing with the community, and we definitely got very disappointed by that change because we did invest 3 weeks in training this agent, creating the memory for it, creating the skills and capabilities, and suddenly it became inoperable and it felt like wasted time. Nothing got wasted. We learned so much, but you know what I mean? In terms of
Yeah.
impact for the business, it feels like a minus.
But let me push back on this because I also deleted my OpenClaw. But technically, this is not bound by any way to Anthropic models. Technically, we could have easily switched to OpenAI or some of the other options that they have. I think they also, among all the models, like there was also like DeepSeek, considerably cheaper. Goes to China, but if you're price conscious, like that's one option. So the fact that we deleted it and we didn't try alternatives, doesn't this speak about the fact that this isn't important enough for us or that we have an alternative? Because otherwise we would have, if it was so good, we would have just tried a different model. Like even like just put $10 in through their API keys and see how like the consumption is.
Correct. Yeah. So actually, what we come back to is that we did not manage to ship anything of such a high significance where we felt that we can no longer operate the business without this. I think we were working towards it.
We've been working towards, like we've been using it both for personal productivity and for automating like business processes. But then again, like I think that this thing with the SEO, I think that's really comes down to creating like these custom solutions, like custom products that rely on some kind of an AI usage, but it's not entirely AI. Earlier, you and I had this conversation about the memory of OpenClaw. And the thing is that one of the nice things is because it feels that it remembers everything that we've done so far, and it's like a continuous collaboration with a digital employee. But it's because like it just saves all these things in its memory, which is essentially like a text file, and it inserts them into every single prompt, and it's just
Which is highly inefficient.
crazy
a moment.
inefficient. So I think one thing that at least like I'm thinking about is that even though that I don't have like so much technical knowledge, I am starting to see that it's really about like building like these products that are for different aspects of your business. And just some of it is algorithms, which is just things calculated locally on your machine or on another server. And other parts is done by the LLM, but is really like the parts that are better suited for LLM work are done by it, but not everything.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that's gonna be the solution. When you were saying it, I was imagining a human that we're having this conversation, and I ask you for your favorite breakfast when you were a kid, before you went to kindergarten in the morning. What did you eat? And instead of you through the prompt going in that memory, essentially you leave away all these other memories and you go directly to childhood. You go to the age of kindergarten. You imagine yourself in the surrounding of your home and parents, and you then try to retrieve the memory for what did you eat for breakfast. But instead of doing that, when I ask the question, you run through your entire life, anything possible you've remembered, anything in your memory, relationships, people, work, knowledge, random generic stuff, science, math, and everything. And then after you've compiled all this information, it's a moment you figure out, okay, here we have memories for kids and from childhood,
Yeah.
and this is the breakfast one, and then you start retrieving it. Well, being so bizarre to converse, but this is essentially in a metaphorical way what these agents are doing with these markdown files. Like there is right now we are trying to create these pathways for them to navigate their memory, but just to be on the sure side, they run through the entire thing,
Yeah.
especially in the early days where you're conversing with it and it tries to build upon it. You actually are running through this entire memory for it to have that feeling of continuity and that it actually remembers it.
By the way, like Claude is doing somewhat of a similar thing. So if you have like the projects, like these folders, you can give instructions per project. But as you're interacting inside of this project, you're going to see that on the top right corner, there is one block that's called memory. And essentially, again, it's a text file that you can review. It's only visible to you. And you can see all the things that the desktop consumer facing app of Cloud has extracted for this particular project. So for example, if you have like I have one project which is for sales calls. So I would upload transcriptions and I would use Claude to help me navigate like the sales process. So in the memory, it has highlighted previous deals that we've done. And of course, like this thing is increasing. So I guess like this is like one attempt to where you as a user and the agent, you're kind of like creating like these compartments in order like to keep the right amount of context for the particular line of work that you're trying to get done.
Yeah, because also the founder of OpenClaw was commenting in a podcast he did with Lex Friedman. He said, well, sometimes it actually helps to tell the agent to take it slow and take its time, because the moment it starts running out of context, it freaks out to that it's time to produce some kind of a coherent answer to the question. And then it actually is much more prone to hallucinate, skip things, skip information, and do kind of a crappy job. It's a little bit like telling your employee at the end of the day, 5 minutes before end of the day, and say, hey, can you compile this pitch deck for me? And they're gonna rush through it because they want to be done, and they'll just use the overall information they can quickly skim through instead of doing a proper deep dive. So very much like an employee. And so
Yeah.
many things are not figured out. The memory, the skills, this thing that we were discussing around SEO agent, it seems like it needs to be a skill. I don't know if it needs to be an app or it needs to be a skill. And probably there are already tons of these skills for our use case and what we were trying to achieve. We build it from scratch, but it seems like it's something that any business could use. Essentially, hey, I want you to take into account my Google Analytics and search data. I want you to take into account these reports from different like search atlas and different of these SEO optimizing report companies. And I want you to also take into account my technology that I'm using, and I need you to plug it in the context of my business and then operate that activity. Like overall, that needs to be kind of an infrastructure, really, the same thing for every company, and then there's
Yeah,
difference in what are the specifics. So it feels very something that can be SaaS based, like honestly, like this AI agent that we were using before OpenClaw for that task. You should just have these capabilities. You should have the plugin to your Google Analytics, and it should have your reports, and it should be able to do keyword research, and then it will be a perfect product. Just the only problem with it is that it works in isolation and it requires you to work further around the output it has created. So bottom
but
line is that even if we had gotten our OpenClaw SEO agent to work perfectly, I feel like that was very translatable to somebody else's use case skill.
for sure, I think that this is. I don't know, like how the OpenClaw was handling like these kind of like different assignments or like cron jobs, because this was essentially this kind of a background cron job with the SEO. Because for doing like these things, it doesn't need to take into consideration all the other things. And even like in a business context, like when I'm thinking about setting this up, I'm imagining it a series of agents that are doing particular aspects of the work and are extracting and compiling information so that then another agent can use that already simplified data set in order to make these decisions, in order to just limit the amount of context, or better yet, like serve the right amount of context for the LLM to take a decision. Which also kind of makes me think about question based, because there was a point when we started like using like a poll where I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, like question based seems to be so primitive because it's just doing this one thing. But basically, it's an agent and it uses company documentation, which could be in Google Docs or Notion or Intercom, to proactively answer to questions inside Slack. So when an employee asks a question, as it often happens, question-based detects this without being specifically asked. And then whenever it has like a high confidence that it can respond to the question, it will use that information in the knowledge base to do it. But it doesn't load that context every time, right? So you don't just give this infinite amount of company knowledge and every time it just processes the whole thing. It's done in a way in order to split the work and make that database of knowledge searchable by the LM. So I started like looking with higher appreciation for the product because it's really optimized for that specific business process and this function, and it's very efficient at it.
Exactly. So we've seen it with clients that came to us after they have been using Slack AI, for example, where upon every question, um, that a person needs to remember to search for, it goes into the entire history of the company conversations and tries to figure out an answer. And it will always figure out something because that's how it is. Like this is an LM, it's actually a pattern matching machine. It is the proximity of this word to that word together should create an answer that is viable. So it will always match it to something.
It would never say, I don't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't exactly. I mean, it depends on what threshold of confidence you have given it, but likely it won't. Whereas with question based, we took a drastically different approach and we said, hey, we need these guardrails to work with company information and pass on information to employees with the confidence that they can take action on this information. And that's why we have the different jobs where, first of all, we proactively detect that this is a question. Second of all, we match it to a vector base. We score what it would be the topic. We then match to this rack system. We then search across the tools, and then we produce an answer. And that answer by now has taken shapes and forms to be much more valid and closer to reality.
I have a newfound appreciation for Casper and his technical abilities to architecture this kind of things, because I mean, on the surface it seems that it's just super easy to create a new product. You just go on Lovable and then you start typing and then it appears. And yes, an interface is going to appear, but how do you solve this technologically in a way that is
Repeatable
super,
and reliable, right?
yeah, and efficient? And also there is the other aspect, like how do you create like a really good product, which is again like it's comes down to somebody taking decisions, right? Like you can outsource these
Hmm.
decisions to the LM. Absolutely. Like you can tell it like make a great product, and it will be like, okay, I'll make a great product. A great product uses good design, and it will start coming up with criteria, and it will be criteria that sound really good. This is the thing, like it's really 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 good at summarizing like these things, but it when it comes to the actual execution, the more you understand, the better you can navigate like this too, because at the end of the day it's a tool. Like it's not some kind of a semi-god conscious thing. Like it's just a tool.
You can really see a product or a website that have been man built with care and that have been vibe coded
Yeah.
entirely, AI generated. With our aspects of the work, which are much more strategic positioning, branding, design, you can especially see it and have that sense of there's something not matching. So many businesses have 2000 type of websites or late 90s with poor animations, with one line content on them, and so on. Traditional businesses, would they benefit way more of having a vibe coded website? For sure, because it will essentially do something that they will not put the work otherwise to do. It will research the market, it will compare their offering to other offerings, it will be able to create something that is so much more than what they already have. But as a company, as a digitally savvy company that operates a digital business, right? Because if you don't have that physical presence that represents you and that is your set of standard, then you have the entire reliance on your brand is on your digital presence. And if that is this vibe that feel to it that you can just prompt your way to within a few conversations, it feels off. It feels that nobody cares about this business. So why should you?
Yeah, this is really touching about something that I often give as a very like simplified example of the purpose of branding, which is basically when you see something, or maybe this is just part of branding. When you see something, two things are going to happen. You're going to want it, and you're going to feel that you can trust it. Like that's the whole point of the visual aspect of design. You see it, creates desire, and establishes trust. You don't know why. You just you just feel it. It just feels right. Like it feels that you want to possess it, and it feels that you can trust it. And this is like a combination of a lot of things. Like it's just the color, the proportions of things, the typography, the language, the imagery. All of these things come together in a matter of like seconds when you as a user look at it and perceive it. And that's why some things feel off. And for people that are not into design, they're, they might not necessarily be able to articulate it. They'll just know that something doesn't feel right. And I think that this is something that we're going to see with a lot of the vibe coded brands, because again, like this is tool is as good as the person that's using it. And if you just say I want to create like a professional looking, user friendly, high conversion SaaS website for this kind of tool, it will create this, but this will be just it. It will be looking exactly like the 20,000 websites that it generated in the past 1 hour. So
Exactly.
it's I think that you're touching upon something very, very important, and that's reputation. And I think in this era of generated content, the reputation of the people behind certain products and services is going to weigh even more. And this is also even bigger importance of personal branding because this is your reputation extended. One thing that I kind of feel I want to have started on much further back in time because we've known that it's an important thing to invest in, but like we've been putting a lot of resources into building businesses, not as much building our personal brands.
Correct. Yeah. But a lot of founders probably found themselves in our shoes because there was a general dread towards social media that led to this off-putting element, like that internal resistance to being it.
Mm.
Because if you want to be putting your work out there, you also need to be willing to maintain that medium. And that medium comes at a high personal cost. Like, I fundamentally don't like social media. I delete all social media from any device I have, any account I have, because it doesn't do anything good to me. I don't like the version of me that uses this technology. Yet, the only one that I have felt fond of has been LinkedIn because I could justify it with my work. And I do love sharing my knowledge. I do love the sense of community. I love natural conversations. That aspects of it I love. So through these conversations with you, we have done it completely objective free because we wanted to talk to each other and to share this knowledge. And if that knowledge is relevant to anybody in our community or they're pondering about the same topics as we are, great. If not, feel free to dismiss it, but we don't push down the throat anything to anyone.
Yeah, I feel the same way about social media like you. I would include LinkedIn in the mix as well. I don't necessarily enjoy going on LinkedIn. Very rarely I would come across content that's actually interesting to consume. And most of the content, because by this point there is a pattern that is being deemed working. And then when people are shaping up their content with an LLM, like it's going to follow that pattern. And it doesn't feel like there's any authenticity in the place. And one might argue that this is not the point of LinkedIn, and the point of LinkedIn, or like the modern version of LinkedIn content, is that your content should give leverage to your audience, and it should be something that they can take and apply life. For me, it's really tiring, and that's why I wanted to get the agent to do this instead of me.
Yeah, you like the conversation part, but you don't like the putting it out there in the technically viable way where it will actually get any eyeballs. Because so often, like if you write your humanly written authentic content, it actually gets penalized because you're not following some technical requirements, mentions, or formatting that the algorithms approve of, and then you might have as well not written it.
To a certain degree, if it doesn't hook people the algorithm is going to serve it to a few people. And if it doesn't react with if it doesn't hook them, it will not spread it. I guess fair enough. Like that's the game. So don't blame the players, blame the game, right? We've been like very fortunate to be really good at creating relationships in the real life, which I would argue is just as important, if not even more important, skill to have. So I kind of like started looking at things that if I need to force myself to do something simply because I believe it's useful, then probably is not the right thing to do. That's why I wanted to get like the AI agent to be doing most of that work. So content, like having these conversations that I enjoy, sharing my thoughts on certain topics, I enjoy that. So, but like going on LinkedIn and actually like putting it, no. Consuming content and interacting with other people's just for the sake of like getting the algorithm like to
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not me. I don't like it. It's
I really fully understand you. That's the catch 22 of the whole um, of the whole building your brand and the cost you need to pay with the social media. Let's wrap it up around our experience with OpenClaw. So over the weekend, boom, our agents died. And
Yes,
are we
we
hosting a
murdered them.
funeral? Are we trying to go for a reincarnation, or what are we doing here?
I think that we're gonna continue experimenting with a different way of running this. I mean, to be completely honest, a lot of the work done by these agents could be done with Cloud's co-work and Cloud Code.
The jobs that you gave it and the task you had for it are
Yeah,
translatable to your cloud code and cloud
yeah.
cowork.
I'm still to figure out uh, how to do it. I mean, obviously, because it had like a separate machine and it had like browser access and it could do these things on a in a scheduled way where it would go, for example, every 2 days of the week and it will do somewhat of a market research visiting several websites and it will check what's happening with specific technology, right? And it will
Yeah.
surface this as a research. I think that they're rolling out scheduled tasks with co-work as well. The other thing that I had tried was like the LinkedIn content managers. I would give it a video, I would give it a transcript in a folder, and the whole idea was that it would take it, it would prepare a post for me to approve it, and then it will upload it. And I had to make like a good custom LinkedIn app in order to be able to handle like the uploading. Again, it was a nice to have optimization. It wasn't like mission critical. And another thing that it had as a job in the first hour after I have published content, it would find relatable posts of other people and it would suggest comments. And again, I would review them and I would go and comment on these posts. But I looked at it and I was like, I don't really want to write this. I understand that it makes sense for the algorithm. It's just I don't want to do it. It doesn't feel right. So yeah, I think at this point I'm more thinking about in terms of specific business processes, particularly like that thing with the SEO bot, building like this for ourselves and giving us like that capability of basically working with it, tweaking it.
Yeah, so this is something that's important to us. So we'll likely figure out another API key subscription or whatever it is and give it the memory of the previous agent and kickstart it from there. Well, Stefani, we've covered a lot of ground of this endeavor. It's been very enriching. I think we learned so much within the span of such a short time, and we sneak peeked into the future. One day we'll listen to this conversation, be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we had these problems. This fully resolved today, and everything works so smoothly."
Nobody cares about tokens anymore because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
This is, this is like who's worried about the length of text messages nowadays, right?
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes I would just post a transcription of a entire conversation into a text message and send it, and I'll never think about it. Like the character count of like 2,000 words or whatever. Insane. All right. Thank you so much for joining, and we keep going.
Pleasure. Yes.
Bye.
Oh yeah. Ciao.